Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello there, I'm Johnny Mac with the Daily Comedy News. Marc Maron was at the Tribeca Film Festival talking about the new documentary he's part of. We'll talk about that in a second. But the question, of course, hey, you're ending your podcast, huh? Marc said, I do put a lot of it out there, and if I can handle it and I can be gracious about it, and I don't know what it's going to be like to not do it twice a week, and I don't know what part of it is my own neediness or my own need to connect, but I can feel the weight of abandoning these people who've written over the years, you saved my life, I got sober because of you, I didn't kill myself. And then there's part of me that's like, are they going to be okay? Should I reach out to them personally? It meant the world to me and really evolved my sense of self and my sense of being a person. All of this stuff I do has fueled whatever my particular creativity is, and I'm sure I'm not going to disappear after the podcast, but the goal will now be to figure out where to channel that creativity. One of those things, he's got an HBO comedy special that'll be out in August, so between that and the podcast ending and the documentary, a lot of Marc Maron this summer. Marc spoke about putting the special together and said, my process is moving through these things to maybe no laughter or not quite having a way to make it funny or a through line of things. Seeing that part of my process, which is not a standard stand-up process, is where I knew going into the documentary that telling the stories was going to be emotionally loaded, and I didn't have any real control over those emotions. But I knew that being public with the feelings would eventually enable me to settle into that. If I believed in comedy's ability to elevate those feelings into something common and funny, if not touching, that it would reveal itself on stage, so we had to do that. For better or worse, the work I do in general is fairly candid and personal. The real question becomes, how do you do this? When do you do it? The choice to do a podcast episode days after Lynn Shelton passed away, my producer was like, we don't ever have to do a podcast again if you can't handle it. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I think it's kind of important to expose this process in a way because everybody goes through it one way or another. You can't outrun grief, and it's something that people don't really talk about. Part of what I was thinking, I owe it to myself, and just what I do as an artist performer is to have public experience with this. The documentary is called Are We Good? Julie Seabaugh is the producer and spoke to the New York Post about the doc. Julie says, I made the master timeline of his life, went through all his podcast episodes, arranged the shoots at the venues, spent 5 years as story editor, plotted out what the different threads of the film were going to be, and gave my sometimes harsh opinion on what should be included. The Post was curious, does the narrative of the doc change with WTF coming to an end? Julie said, a lot of people are curious about that. My phone blew up when that happened, but there's a plan. And the release will be around the same time frame as when the podcast is ending. This is Maron we're talking about, though. He's going to do everything he wants on his own terms. I think we're all excited to see what the next version of Maron is going to be, but he does seem happy settling into his old man phase. The Post asked what it's like working with Marc Maron. Julie said, there's never a dull moment with Marc Maron. He's a highly watchable person, but also a bit volatile. When you start seeing how he lives and where everything comes from into his mind, it's rewarding on a whole other level. He gets super emotional sometimes. After his Seattle set, one of Lynn's friends came up to him and said he knew Lynn is proud of him. We instantly see his face crumble as he takes pictures with fans. The Post was curious what landed on the cutting room floor. Julie says there were a lot of scenes or moments of him trash-talking comedians that didn't make the finished product. There's still a little bit in there, but it wasn't the crux of the movie. We didn't need to bring in outside controversy into something that's already a lot to deal with as a film on its own. That's interesting, right? Wonder who it is. Julie's working on that Mitch Hedberg documentary, the one with Jeff Siegel. I spoke to Jeff a few months ago now. Looking forward to both those documentaries. Burt Kreischer on Raw Recap explained what went down in the ring. On April 7th, Burt Kreischer had appeared in a segment during the episode of WWE Raw. Burt wound up hopping the barricade to put a stop to Austin Theory and Grayson Waller's attack on CM Punk. Kreischer said the moment wasn't planned. He had proposed doing a spot earlier in the evening. Triple H vetoed it. Triple H has creative control. But once Waller and Theory's beatdown of CM started taking place, Burt says, they take me over and I just pull my belt off to defend myself because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm in way over my head. All of a sudden, CM Punk's like, get in the ring. So I get in the ring and he's like, can you choke slam him? And I was like, I think so. So he just put his throat in my hand. I heard CM Punk go 1, 2, boom. And brother, I would say every man deserves to lose his virginity to the woman he loves and to choke slam a person from a different country. That's all I'll say. The Sydney Morning Herald wrote a big profile piece about Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan experience. Jordan Baker writes under the headline, Joe Rogan's message can be rambling and unpolished, yet men idolize him. This might be why. Jordan writes, Joe Rogan likes to hunt and cook his own food. He shoots with a bow. Elk, with their wild screams, are his favorite prey, then barbecues the meat and serves it thinly cut with cheese and jalapenos. He uses weed and psychedelics, reads Hunter S. Thompson, and dabbles in stand-up comedy. He's a mixed martial arts expert and nurtures his hard, nuggety physique with grueling workouts and experimental supplements. Rogan is a man's man, and many Australian men love him. His followers are not just fight fans, gym bros, and fellow vaccine skeptics. Highly educated, urbane, and politically centrist men listen too. One anonymous fan says, "Who wouldn't want to be a skilled martial artist with loads of muscles? Would you rather be that guy or be known for being witty or intelligent? Yeah, I'd rather be that guy." The Herald tells us of a Sydney-based chief executive who listens regularly and says, if you go to the pub with your mates and shoot the stuff for a few hours, the conversation goes from the footy to taxes to, did you hear about the crazy celebrity? That's what you get from Rogan. The people who say you got to be careful of Joe Rogan and the manosphere are people from legacy media who are losing out to him. Jordan Baker continues, it's a conversation with no specific purpose, reminiscent of a freshman lying on the university lawn gazing at the stars. His shtick is open-minded curiosity about everything, even theories that are discredited. He hates talking points and scripts. He expects his guests to say what they think rather than spin answers to avoid stepping on toes. I really like this piece a lot. They quote Jack, who's 26 and works in insurance. And I think Jack understands the show and likes it for the same reasons I do. Jack says he's having a bit of fun. He might be having a few drinks on the podcast. He's debating things. They talk about interesting topics, a different point of view. I just think he's a funny, good bloke. That's how I feel about the show. I don't take it too seriously. I find it easy on the ears. It's a good late-night podcast if you're having trouble sleeping. I like it a lot. Netflix announced Nate Jackson will have a special on July 8th. It is called Super Funny. Nate Jackson tackles everything from racially questionable cookies to other everyday absurdities. Nate is also going to be in that Office spin-off, reboot, whatever it is, side project, The Paper. So we'll be hearing a lot about Nate Jackson. And Chelsea Handler will be your headliner at the 2025 Rochester Fringe Festival. That's coming up in September. So I shared this in the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. Remember the Nate Bargatze Esquire profile that came out in May? So I was actually looking at it again, and in it, it had a photo shoot, and I came away feeling a little weird. So here's Nate, and I understand, what Esquire's going for, but they want us to know that Nate Bargatze is wearing a $5,600 jacket, a $428 shirt, $328 trousers, a $128 tie, $795 shoes, a $10,600 watch, a $395 ring, and a $275 belt. And I don't know, as I posted, I go, is this supposed to make Nate more likable? Seems to disconnect. And then some of the gang was debating that in the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. Again, I'm not like walking around all day going, I can't believe Nate Bargatze's wearing a $10,000 watch, but it just seemed a little bit of a disconnect from his everyday image. Whatever. Jimmy Kimmel taking the summer off. David Spade mentioned that he will be one of the fill-ins this year. Again, every time Kimmel starts going, maybe I won't host late night anymore, and I understand public negotiating. It's like, dude, you get the summer off. You could stretch out your winter break. You could cut down to 3 days, 4 days. I don't know. What you probably do 4 days now. You could cut down to 3. ABC will keep you. You might have to take a little less money, but don't walk away from the show. Ken Flores, who passed away earlier this year, is one of the comedians in Hulu's LOL Live. The LA Times wrote a nice piece about Ken. Gabe Iglesias talked about having Ken open for him in 2023. Gabe says it was a highlight to have him, his family, his mom, dad, and friends were there with him, and 15,000 people that night. He remembers Flores as kind and respectful. People did like him, and that's very telling. Ralph Barbosa said the most memorable thing about him is how real he was. Ken never kissed anybody's butt, which made me respect him a lot more, because that means everything he got was through talent and hard work. Flores was going to tour this year with Renee Vaca and Ralph Barbosa. Renee and Ralph continued to tour. They adopted the tour name from Ken, The Butterfly Effect, and they split the profit 3 ways to include Flores' family. Barbosa said none of us would do it unless it was split this evenly. During every show, they play an unreleased 15-minute segment of Flores. Vaca says he's still killing it in the audience, and that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, please tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you would like the program without commercial interruption, no feed drops, none of that, and it's a great way to support the show. $5 a month. Go to calaroga.com/plus, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, click the banner that says uninterrupted listening. You'll get this show and 5 good news stories, which I also host, and about 25 others on the network, commercial free, no feed drops. See you tomorrow.